The night Amina was thrown out, the sky itself seemed to scream with her mother's agony. Thunder cracked over the village as Halima clung to her daughter, her voice breaking while rough hands pried the child away. Lanterns flickered violently, illuminating Amina's terrified face, while Barasa and his family hurled accusations she never understood. One moment she was her mother's little girl. The next she was being dragged across the courtyard like an unwanted burden. Amina's feet slipped in the mud as rain poured over her trembling body. Halima collapsed to her knees, reaching out desperately, her cries piercing helpless while the door slammed shut between them forever. And just before Amina disappeared into the storm, she whispered a promise through her tears: "I will return." Years later, the same village would fall silent as a convoy of black SUVs rolled in, and a powerful woman stepped out, cold, elegant, unrecognizable. But her eyes carried the memory of that night. Before we begin this story, tell me, where are you watching from and what time is it there? If you enjoy emotional African folktale dramas, consider subscribing so you won't miss the next story. Amina had always known her life was different from the other children in the village, even long before the night she was torn from her mother's arms. She grew up in a tiny mud brick house on the outskirts of Kijani village, where poverty clung to every corner like dust that refused to be swept away. Her mother Halima worked tirelessly to keep the small household running, fetching water before dawn, washing clothes for wealthier families, and cooking meals that were sometimes nothing more than thin porridge. Yet despite everything, Halima's smile never faded when she looked at her daughter. To her, Amina was light in a world that rarely offered warmth. But that warmth had no place in the home they shared with Barasa, Halima's husband. He had married Halima after her first husband's death, promising protection and stability. What he delivered instead was cruelty disguised as responsibility. Barasa believed children were only valuable if they were beneficial, if they could work, if they could bring pride, if they could serve him. Amina, with her gentle nature and bright questioning eyes, represented none of these things. She was merely a reminder of the man who had come before him. His mother, old sour-faced Mama Zawadi, never let Halima forget it. Every morning she would emerge from her room, complaining loudly. The water was too cold, the fire too weak, the food too tasteless, the house too small. And whenever Amina walked by, she would click her tongue sharply, as if the child offended her by simply breathing. "A child who brings no blessing," Mama Zawadi often muttered. "Just a shadow in this house." Amina learned to keep quiet to avoid the corners where Barasa or his mother lingered to help Halima in silence. She swept floors, washed dishes, and accompanied her mother to the village well. She tried to be useful, hoping one day anyone besides her mother, might look at her with kindness. But kindness was scarce inside that home. The turning point came months before the night she was cast out. It was a hot afternoon, and Halima had gone to the marketplace to sell cassava. Amina, left behind, was sweeping the courtyard when Mama Zawadi appeared with a small wooden box in her hands. Her fingers trembled as she opened it, revealing a golden bangle decorated with tiny emerald stones, the family's most valuable heirloom, said to have belonged to Barasa's grandmother. "Do you know what this is?" the old woman asked. Amina shook her head, unsure if answering might cause trouble. "This is honor," Mama Zawadi said coldly. "And people like you are not meant to touch honor." The way she emphasized the word people made Amina shrink back. She never saw the bangle again after that moment. She didn't know its disappearance would soon be used against her. Days later, the house erupted in chaos. Voices echoed off the walls. Barasa stormed through the rooms, overturning baskets and slamming cabinet doors. "Where is it?" he shouted. "Where is the bangle?" Mama Zawadi wailed dramatically in the courtyard, claiming she had placed it safely in her box but found it missing that morning. And then came the accusation, sharp, loud, and unmistakable. "It was the girl," the old woman cried. "She was the only one near the box. I saw her eyeing it like a thief." Amina froze. Her throat tightened as Barasa spun toward her, his face twisting with rage. "You dare steal from this house," he snarled. "After all we've done to feed you." I didn't," Amina whispered. "I never touched it, I swear." But her voice was too small, too fragile to withstand the storm forming around her. "Lies," Mama Zawadi hissed. "Look at her." Children like her are born with the devil's fingers. Amina's heart pounded. She searched for her mother, praying Halima would appear and put an end to this nightmare. But Halima was still in the market, unaware of the trap being woven around her daughter. By evening, the entire household had been turned against Amina. Barasa paced like a man possessed, muttering about shame and curses. The bangle was never found because it had never been lost. It had been hidden deliberately. When Halima rushed home later and found Amina trembling in the corner, she immediately wrapped her arms around her daughter. What happened? She cried. Why is my child shaking? Barasa stepped forward. Your child is a thief. Halima's gasp was sharp enough to cut through the air. No, no, Amina would never. Are you calling my mother a liar? He roared. Mama Zawadi sniffed loudly, pretending to wipe away non-existent tears. I saw her. I saw the way she looked at the box. The bangle vanished after that. What more evidence do you need? Halima shook her head frantically. Please, she's just a child, you know her. She would never steal. But the more she defended Amina, the angrier Barasa became. For him, this accusation was a convenient truth. The presence of Halima's daughter had always irritated him. Now he had a reason manufactured or not to get rid of her. Halima fell to her knees, begging, pleading, crying. Barasa, don't do this. Please. She's my daughter. She's innocent. Barasa turned away. Then both of you can leave. But Mama Zawadi quickly intervened. No, the woman stays. She has duties. But the girl must go. Now. Halima felt her world collapse. You can't take my child from me, she whispered, voice trembling. Barasa's jaw locked. She leaves tonight. Amina clung to her mother, burying her face in Halima's neck. Mama, I didn't do anything. Please don't let them take me. Halima held her tighter, shaking uncontrollably. I know, my child. I know. It's not your fault. They stayed that way until Barasa forcibly pried Amina away, ignoring Halima's screams. He dragged the girl outside as the sky darkened, clouds gathering like witnesses to the cruelty. Mama Zawadi watched from the doorway with satisfaction. Amina cried out for her mother until her voice cracked. Halima tried to follow, but Mama Zawadi and Barasa blocked her path. She collapsed onto the ground, beating her fists against the earth as her daughter was shoved into the night. Amina didn't remember much. After that, the rain, the mud, the fear. Her mind blurred into survival. She walked until her legs gave out, until she couldn't hear her mother's cries anymore. What she didn't know was this. The village would speak of that night for months, some with pity, others with disdain, but none would dare question Barasa's judgment. And Halima spent every day after searching for her daughter, haunted by the sound of that door slamming shut. The story of Amina's suffering was only beginning. Yet faraway fate was already preparing the path that would one day return her to this land, not as a victim, but as a woman forged in fire. Rain beat against Amina's thin shoulders as she stumbled farther from the home that had never truly been hers. Each step felt like walking through a nightmare she could not wake from. The darkness swallowed the path in front of her, turning the familiar village outskirts into a maze of shadows and cold wind. Her tiny feet, bare and bruised, slipped in the mud as thunder cracked overhead. She hugged her arms tightly around her chest, trying to preserve whatever warmth remained after being ripped from her mother's embrace. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't know how long she had walked. All she knew was the ache in her chest, the image of Halima, screaming, thrashing against Barasa's grip, trying desperately to hold on to her daughter. That sound would haunt Amina for years. Eventually exhausted, she collapsed beneath a large acacia tree. The branches rattled violently in the storm, sending water dripping down onto her hair and face. She curled herself into a small ball, shivering uncontrollably. The thunder felt too loud, the world too big. She was 12, old enough to understand cruelty, too young to survive it alone. Hours passed. The storm raged on. A pair of headlights suddenly appeared in the distance, cutting through the sheets of rain. Amina tensed, fear gripping her. She had learned early in life that people rarely stopped to help a child like her, especially at night, especially in a storm. The vehicle slowed, tires crunching on the gravel. A door opened, and a man's voice called out through the night. Hey, little one, what are you doing out here? Amina didn't answer. She pressed herself against the tree trunk, hoping the darkness would camouflage her. The man stepped closer, holding a lantern. Its warm glow revealed a tall figure with broad shoulders and a face lined with age, but softened by concern. He wore a soaked tunic and boots caked in mud, proof that he had left the shelter of his car to approach her. My name is Musa, he said gently. I'm not here to hurt you. Still, Amina didn't move. She couldn't trust strangers. Trust had betrayed her too many times. Musa crouched beside her. Child, no one should be alone in a storm like this. Let me help, please. His voice, steady, warm, sincere, pulled something inside her chest. Slowly, she lifted her head. Musa saw the terror in her eyes, the streaks of dried mud on her cheeks, the tremble of her lips. Come, he murmured, removing his coat and placing it around her shoulders. You're freezing. When she didn't resist, he scooped her into his arms. Amina was too tired, too numb to fight anymore. She let herself be carried to the car where he wrapped her in a thick blanket and turned up the heater. As the warmth seeped into her bones, Amina's eyes filled with tears she didn't release. He watched her silently for a moment. "Where is your family?" The words sliced her like a blade. She shook her head. I don't have one." Musa didn't press further. He simply nodded, started the engine, and drove toward the city. The storm rumbled behind them like the echo of the life she was leaving behind. By the time they reached Musa's home, a spacious compound in the heart of Nyaribo City, the rain had stopped. Dawn was beginning to break, washing the sky in pale shades of pink and lavender. Amina stared through the window, mesmerized by the tall buildings, the bustling early morning vendors, the smell of roasted maize drifting through the air. This was a world she had only heard stories about. Inside the compound, a housekeeper named Sophia rushed to the car. "Musa, you're soaked." "And who is?" "This child needs help," Musa interrupted gently. "Prepare a warm bath and some food." Sophia nodded immediately. As she guided Amina inside, the little girl hesitated at the doorway. The house was too clean, too bright, too different from the cramped life she had known. It felt unreal. Sophia noticed her fear and knelt down. "You're safe here," she said softly. "No one will harm you." For the first time in hours, Amina allowed herself to breathe. Over the next few days, she learned more about Musa. He was a widower, a merchant who traded fabric and spices, known throughout the region for his integrity. He had no children of his own, only his business and the people he cared for. Sophia explained that he often helped those in need, widows, orphans, families displaced by floods. But Amina wasn't just another charity case to him. "What is your name?" Musa asked one evening as they sat at the dining table. She hesitated before answering. "Amina," he smiled. "A beautiful name. It means trustworthy." The irony made her throat tighten, but she didn't correct him. "Amina," he continued, "I won't force you to tell me what happened, but know that you can stay here as long as you need. This house is open to you." Her eyes widened. "Forever." "If you wish," Musa replied simply. The words struck something deep within her, hope, fragile but burning. Amina stayed. Weeks turned into months. She enrolled in school for the first time, learning to read, write, and speak confidently. Musa treated her like a daughter, celebrating her achievements with pride and encouraging her when she struggled. Sophia taught her how to cook, how to sew, how to carry herself with dignity. For the first time in her life, Amina felt wanted. But the wounds inside her did not fade easily. At night, she sometimes woke up sobbing, remembering Halima's screams. Sophia would rush to her room, hold her until she calmed, whispering that some memories must be carried until they can be healed. Musa, too, noticed the shadows in Amina's eyes whenever someone yelled or spoke harshly. He made sure no one in the house raised their voice around her. One day, Musa found her sitting on the staircase, staring blankly. "Amina," he said, sitting beside her, "pain from the past can either break you or strengthen you. You must decide which it will be." She looked at him with trembling lips. "But I am just a child." He placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "You are a child now. But one day you will grow. One day you will have the power to rewrite your story." Those words planted themselves in her heart like a seed. Years later, when Musa passed away suddenly from a heart condition, Amina, now 17, felt the world tilt beneath her feet. The man who saved her, shaped her, loved her, was gone. She grieved for weeks, refusing to eat, refusing to leave her room. Sophia tried everything to comfort her, but Amina felt as though she had been orphaned twice. Then came the will. Musa had left everything to her, his home, his savings, and most significantly, his small but promising export business. Many of his business acquaintances scoffed at the idea of a teenage girl taking over. "She's too young," they whispered. "She won't last a month. This company will crumble." Those words might have broken the old Amina, but not the Amina forged by storm, by loss, by resilience. She stood before them at Musa's memorial, gathering her voice steady. "I will honor him," she said, "and I will build what he began." Some laughed quietly, others shook their heads. But Amina, remembering the night she was thrown into darkness, refused to crumble again. She worked relentlessly, studying commerce, learning leadership, negotiating deals with a sharpness no one anticipated. She traveled to coastal ports, factories, and markets, building partnerships one by one. People underestimated her at first, but soon whispers changed. "That girl is brilliant. She negotiates like a lion. She has Musa's fire and something even stronger." By 25, she transformed Musa's modest business into one of the region's most influential export firms. Newspapers called her the Iron Lady of Nyaribo. But even as she rose to power, the ache for her mother Halima never left her. She had never dared return to the village, not until she was strong enough, not until she could face the ghosts. And now, she finally was. Amina had always believed that the night she was cast out would remain the deepest wound of her life until the day she returned to her old village as a grown woman and learned an entirely new truth. Her mother had never stopped searching for her. That knowledge struck her long before she even stepped foot on the familiar dusty path leading home. But that revelation was still far in the future. Before she could return to the place that had broken her, she had to survive yet another heartbreak, one that would shape not only her resolve but her destiny. It happened in her 19th year, just as she had begun building confidence in her leadership. Musa had been unwell for months, though he hid it behind warm smiles and his usual calm strength. Amina noticed his fatigue, the way his breath grew shorter, the faint shake in his hands, but she assumed it was the stress of running a business. She didn't know his heart had been quietly failing him. One morning, Sophia burst into Amina's room, her face pale. "Musa!" He collapsed. Amina didn't remember running, only stumbling through the hallway, her pulse pounding in her ears. Musa lay on the floor of his study, his breathing shallow. His eyes searched for her, flickering with love and fear. She knelt beside him. "Baba, stay with me, please." He tried to speak, but the words came out in fragments. "Amina, my child, don't be afraid." She gripped his hand tightly. "I'm here. You'll be okay. I'll get help. Sophia is calling someone, just hold on." But Musa shook his head slowly. He knew. He had always known. "Listen," he whispered, struggling for breath. "Your life will be bigger than pain, bigger than anger. Remember that." Tears filled Amina's eyes. "I can't lose you. You're the only. You will never be alone," Musa said softly, his gaze full of peace. "Because I raised a lioness." Those were his final words before his chest stilled. Amina screamed. The sound tore through the house, through the garden, through the hearts of everyone who loved him. It was the sound of a soul breaking for the second time in one lifetime, except this time she wasn't a helpless child. She was a young woman being thrust into power before she felt ready. The days after Musa's funeral blurred into a fog of grief. Amina refused to eat. She refused to leave the bed. Safia checked on her, constantly begging her to stay strong. The business community whispered among themselves, certain the company would collapse now that its founder was gone. But when the will was read, everything changed. Musa had left her everything, not because she was the only one he had, but because he believed she could carry on his vision. The company was now hers. The properties, the savings, the investments hers. Amina could barely speak as the lawyer read the details. She felt unworthy, shocked, overwhelmed. Sophia placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "He trusted you. He saw strength in you long before you saw it yourself." But strength was not something Amina could summon instantly. The very next week, a group of senior business partners, men twice her age, with even bigger egos, requested a meeting. When Amina entered the boardroom, they exchanged glances, clearly unimpressed. One of them, a tall man with gold-rimmed glasses, leaned back with a smirk. "We appreciate your presence, Miss Amina, but we must be realistic. You are too young to oversee such responsibilities. We think it best if the company is placed under temporary guardianship." Amina felt something simmer in her chest, not fear, but fire. "With all due respect," she said quietly. Musa believed otherwise. Another man scoffed. "Emotion is not a business strategy." "No," Amina agreed, "but vision is. And he taught me every detail of his." She pulled out documents she had spent the entire night studying, even through tears. Projections, new markets, supply chains, modern strategies Musa had once dreamed of implementing. She spoke with clarity, confidence, and precision until even the men who doubted her found themselves nodding. When she finished, silence filled the room. The man with the gold-rimmed glasses cleared his throat. "Very well, we can proceed under your leadership for now. For as long as I lead," Amina corrected with calm steel. That meeting marked the beginning of a transformation. She worked relentlessly, taking night classes in commerce, hiring expert mentors, building relationships with suppliers and exporters across East Africa. She traveled to Mombasa, Nairobi, Kampala, negotiating, learning, growing. Each success hardened her determination. Each obstacle sharpened her courage. Every rejection strengthened her voice. She rose quickly, and within 6 years, Musa's once modest company became a giant, the largest exporter of agricultural goods and handcrafted textiles in the region. By 25 newspaper headlines called her the Iron Lady of Nairobi, the orphan who built an empire, the woman who stood where giants fell. Yet no achievement filled the void inside her heart, because she still did not know if her mother was alive. That unanswered question gnawed at her more fiercely each year. Halima's face, tear-streaked and desperate, would flash in her mind during meetings, while she stared out airplane windows, even in moments of triumph. She longed for her mother's embrace, the warmth of her voice, the scent of her cooking. But returning home was not simple. She feared what she might find. Perhaps Halima had died from sorrow. Perhaps Baras's cruelty had destroyed her. Perhaps the village had erased Amina from its memory. Yet deep down she felt something tugging her back, an invisible thread woven from the love of the woman who had never let go of her. One sleepless night, after completing a major business deal, she stood on her balcony staring at the city lights. The wind blew gently across her face. And suddenly, like a whisper, she heard Musa's voice. "Your life will be bigger than pain." Amina inhaled deeply. It was time. The next morning she called her assistant. "Prepare for travel. I'm going back to Kijani village." Her assistant's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" After all these years, Amina nodded. "I need answers. I need closure. And I'm strong enough now." Within days, she was on the road, her convoy of sleek black SUVs moving steadily across highways and dusty rural paths. The passing landscape stirred memories she had spent years burying. The farther they went, the deeper her chest tightened. As the convoy neared the village entrance, Amina requested something unusual. "No title," she said, "no introductions. I want to walk into the village as a stranger first." Her security team hesitated. "But madam, please," she insisted, "let me see home with unfiltered eyes." Reluctantly, they agreed. Amina stepped out onto the familiar dirt road disguised in a simple dress. Her hair tied back, no jewelry except a small pendant Musa had gifted her years ago. The villagers watched curiously, but none recognized her. Not yet. She looked around, slowly absorbing every detail. The acacia trees, the market stalls, the distant hills. Everything was the same. Everything was different. Her heart pounded harder as she approached the center of the village. Was her mother here? Was she alive? Would she recognize her own daughter? Amina swallowed her fear. And then just beyond the well, where she used to fetch water as a child, she saw her, a thin woman sitting alone on a wooden stool, her eyes tired, her hands trembling as she tried to weave a basket. Halima, older, frailer, but unmistakably her. Amina froze, breath stolen from her chest. Tears welled instantly. Her mother was alive. And about to discover that the daughter she thought she had lost had returned, not broken, not defeated, but powerful beyond imagination. For a long moment, Amina could not move. Her feet felt rooted to the earth, as if every step toward her mother required courage she hadn't yet gathered. Halima sat only a few meters away, but the years between them felt like valleys filled with sorrow, longing, and unanswered prayers. The older woman's hands shook as she worked the straw between her fingers, her movements unsteady but determined. Each strand she wove seemed to carry weight, pain, memories, hope that had not yet died. Amina's breath hitched. She had imagined this meeting 1,000 times. In some dreams, she ran to her mother, fell into her arms, and wept freely. In others, Halima didn't recognize her at all. But in none of them had she pictured herself frozen in place, paralyzed by emotion. She felt the years wash over her like waves, 12-year-old Amina standing alone in the rain. Halima's screams echoing behind her. Teenage Amina curled in Musa's home battling nightmares. Young adult Amina building an empire with fire inside her chest. All those versions of her converged in this moment. Her heart whispered "Mama," but her voice refused to rise. Her security team watched from a distance, sensing her hesitation but knowing better than to approach. Amina inhaled deeply, steadying herself. She began walking, each step slow, almost reverent. The closer she came, the more details she noticed. Halima's hair had grown thinner. Her once bright eyes were clouded with exhaustion. Fine wrinkles curved around her mouth, evidence of years spent crying, searching, worrying. But beneath the weariness, Amina saw something unbroken, the gentleness that had once protected her from a cruel world. Finally, Amina stood before her mother. Halima didn't look up. She continued weaving, unaware of the storm of emotion standing just meters away. Amina opened her mouth, but the words tangled inside her throat. "Excuse me," she whispered softly. Halima lifted her head. Their eyes met. And in that instant, the world seemed to stop. Halima stared at the young woman before her, tall, elegant, composed, yet with eyes so familiar they stole the breath from her lungs. Amina felt her knees weaken under the weight of recognition that flickered across her mother's face, then disappeared just as quickly, hidden beneath uncertainty. "Yes, my dear," Halima croaked. Her voice was thin, weak, yet still the warmest sound Amina had ever known. Amina swallowed. I'm just passing through. I saw you working alone. May I sit? Halima nodded. Of course. Amina lowered herself beside her heart pounding painfully. She wanted to scream her truth, to wrap her arms around Halima and weep with all the tears she had swallowed over the years. But she held back. She had not returned only for reunion. She had come seeking the truth, and she needed to know everything before revealing who she was. Halima resumed weaving, glancing occasionally at Amina. You're not from here, she said gently. Amina smiled faintly. No, but it still feels familiar. Halima sighed. Familiar can be both comfort and curse. Amina's breath caught. The sadness in her mother's voice felt like a blade. What do you mean? She asked. Halima's hands stilled. She looked toward the horizon as if the past were painted across the sky. This village holds memories I cannot escape, she whispered. Memories of someone I lost. Amina's chest tightened. Someone you lost, Halima nodded weakly. My daughter. Amina nearly burst into tears. She forced herself to breathe evenly, her fingers curling into her palms. What? What happened to her? Amina asked softly. Halima closed her eyes. She was wronged, accused of a crime she never committed. Taken from me, thrown into the night. I tried to reach her, but they held me back. Her voice trembled, and a single tear slipped down her cheek. I searched for her for years, she continued. Every road, every village, I begged for news. But no one knew anything. When they told me she had died in the storm, Halima broke off, pressing a hand against her mouth. I thought my heart would stop beating. Amina felt the world tilt. They told her I died. Her blood ran cold. Halima swallowed hard. But sometimes, I still hear her. Halima touched her chest lightly. In here, a mother never truly loses her child. Amina couldn't hold back anymore. Without thinking, she reached out and covered Halima's hand with her own. Halima froze. Their eyes met again, and something inside Halima shifted, an instinct older than memory, deeper than thought. She stared into Amina's eyes as if searching for a ghost. Her hand trembled beneath the touch. You remind me of her, Halima whispered. Your eyes, they look like hers. Amina bit her lip hard, trying not to break down. Maybe she survived. Maybe she's out there. Halima smiled sadly. I dreamed that for many years. It kept me alive. But dreams fade when the world insists otherwise. Amina shook her head. Sometimes the world lies. A silence settled over them, thick with unspoken truths. Halima's eyes softened as she studied Amina's face. You speak like someone who carries pain, Halima said gently, and strength. It's rare to see both in one person. Amina's throat tightened. Life taught me both. Halima nodded knowingly. Life teaches, yes, but it also takes. Amina hesitated. Mother, may I ask, what happened after your daughter was taken? Halima looked to the ground. I stayed here for a time hoping she would return. Barasa grew crueler. His mother too. Eventually, he left with another woman. I was already nothing to him, but losing my child, that destroyed me more than anything he ever did. Amina clenched her jaw. You didn't remarry, no, Halima said quietly. I had only one child, and no one else could fill that space. Amina felt something shatter inside her. The urge to reveal herself, to tell her mother, I'm here, I survived, Mama, it's me, burned fiercely inside her chest. But fear held her back. What if the moment wasn't right? What if the pain of the reveal overshadowed the truth she still needed to uncover? Before she could decide, Halima's body suddenly swayed. Her hand slipped from Amina's grip and she clutched her chest, gasping. Mama! The word escaped before Amina could stop herself. Halima collapsed. Amina lunged forward, catching her before her head hit the ground. Help! Someone help! Amina shouted, her voice cracking. Villagers turned to look but hesitated, some out of confusion, others out of apathy. Halima, the quiet, lonely basket weaver, had long been overlooked. Amina glared at them with fury. Get a doctor now. Her security team sprinted forward at her cry. Two of them lifted Halima gently, while another ran ahead to fetch the village healer. Amina held Halima's hand as they moved, whispering, Stay with me, please. I just found you. Halima's eyelids fluttered weakly. Your voice sounds like hers. Amina's tears fell freely. I'm right here. But Halima was already fading into unconsciousness. In that moment, Amina realized something with absolute clarity. She would not lose her mother again. even if it meant revealing who she truly was, even if it meant facing every monster from her past. And for the first time since she left the village as a child, she spoke her vow out loud: I will protect her, no matter what. The world became a blur of movement and panic as Amina rushed alongside the security team, carrying Halima toward the healer's hut. Dust rose beneath their feet, villagers murmured in confusion, and Amina's heart pounded so violently she felt it might burst through her ribs. She had always imagined the day she returned to her mother would be filled with joy, not a desperate fight for Halima's life. The healer, a middle-aged woman named Nyashia, met them at the entrance with a frown deepening across her face. Lay her down, she instructed firmly. They placed Halima on a woven mat. The small hut smelled of herbs, smoke, and dried roots hanging from the ceiling. Nyashia moved quickly, checking Halima's pulse, examining her breathing. Amina knelt beside her mother, struggling to keep her hands steady. What's happening to her? Amina asked, voice trembling. Nyashia didn't answer immediately. She pressed herbs into a small clay bowl, grinding them with rhythmic precision. She has been unwell for a long time, the healer finally said. Weak heart, poor nutrition, exhaustion, and grief. She looked at Amina sharply. That sort of pain eats a person slowly. Amina swallowed hard. Can she be saved? Nyashia sighed. If the gods spare her, yes. But she needs rest, proper food, and no more burdens. Amina felt a cold heaviness settle in her chest. Do everything you can. Nyashia gave her a long, curious look. You care for her deeply. Are you family? The question struck Amina like a blow. She opened her mouth, but the truth caught in her throat. She was not ready, not yet. Revealing herself in the middle of a crisis felt like ripping open a wound instead of healing it. I'm someone who owes her kindness, Amina finally replied. Nyashia studied her face, but didn't push further. Halima stirred faintly on the mat, her breath shallow. Amina took her hand, squeezing gently. It felt fragile, like something that could slip away at any moment. Mama, please hold on, she whispered before catching herself. She forced her voice steady. We're here with you. You're safe. Halima didn't respond, but her lips twitched slightly, as if she recognized the voice somewhere deep inside her fading consciousness. Nyashia prepared a poultice and placed it on Halima's chest. She gave Amina a clay cup filled with warm herbal liquid. When she wakes, she must drink this. Amina nodded. Can I stay with her? Yes, Nyashia replied. But only one person. Too many bodies will overwhelm her. Amina's security team stepped outside, leaving her alone with her mother and Nyashia's quiet humming as she ground more herbs. The soft sounds soothed Amina's frantic heart. For the next hours, Amina stayed at Halima's side, watching her mother's breathing rise and fall in uneven patterns. Memories flooded her, fragments of childhood she had tried to suppress for years. Halima braiding her hair before market day. Halima singing lullabies in their tiny hut. Halima shielding her from Barasa's anger. Halima's trembling hands reaching out as Amina was dragged away. Amina blinked back tears. She had survived hunger, betrayal, poverty, and heartbreak, but nothing had hurt as deeply as remembering her mother's despair that night. As dusk fell, a soft groan escaped Halima's lips. Amina leaned forward immediately. Mama, I'm here. Halima's eyelids fluttered open. Confusion clouded her gaze at first, but then she focused on Amina's face. You? Halima whispered. You stayed. Amina nodded, her throat tightening. Of course. You remind me of her, Halima murmured. Of my daughter. She would be your age by now if she were alive. Amina's breath faltered. What would you tell her if she stood in front of you right now? Halima looked away, tears gathering in her tired eyes. I would tell her I'm sorry. Her voice quivered. Sorry for not protecting her. Sorry for not fighting harder. Sorry for believing the lies they told. Sorry for letting fear silence me. Amina's heart cracked open. You did everything a mother could. Halima shook her head weakly. No, I failed her. And I have lived with that pain every day since. Amina seized her mother's trembling hand. She doesn't blame you. How would you know? Halima whispered. Amina froze. Halima's question hung in the air, heavy, dangerous, unbearably intimate. She could reveal herself now. She could end the torment, heal the wound with truth and love. But something inside her held back. Not out of doubt, never that, but because she wanted the reunion to be complete, to happen when Halima was strong, fully conscious, and safe from collapse. Amina squeezed her hand gently. Because no child blames a mother who fought for her. Halima closed her eyes, tears spilling down her cheeks. You speak with a kind heart. I speak with truth, Amina replied. Outside, the sky darkened. Village children's laughter echoed in the distance. Amina stayed by her mother's side as night settled around the healer's hut. Hours passed. Halima drifted in and out of sleep. Near midnight, as Amina watched her mother rest, she heard Nyashia step into the hut. "She will live," the healer said, voice firm, "but she needs care, real care, not the lonely life she's been living. I will take her somewhere safe," Amina said without hesitation. "Somewhere she can heal." Nyashia raised an eyebrow. "Where would that be, my home?" The healer looked at her more closely. "You are not an ordinary visitor. I sensed that from the moment you arrived." Amina didn't respond, but her silence was confirmation enough. Nyashia nodded slowly. "If you can give her what she needs, then take her. She deserves peace." The next morning, the entire village buzzed with speculation when Amina's convoy of black SUVs rolled in through the dusty main road. The villagers gathered in clusters whispering, "Who is she? Why is she helping Halima? She looks like someone important. She looks familiar somehow." But no one dared approach. Power, even when unspoken, commands distance. Amina stood outside the healer's hut as her team prepared the vehicle for Halima, placing soft bedding and blankets inside. Sophia, whom Amina had brought along, supervised everything with practiced efficiency. When the villagers saw Sophia dressed in refined attire, the whispers intensified. Rumors swirled rapidly through the crowd like sparks in dry grass. Just then, a man pushed through the gathering crowd. Barasa. Amina's breath stilled. He looked older, thinner, more ragged than the monster she remembered. His clothes were worn, his hair unkempt, his eyes red from alcohol or guilt, or both. He stared at Amina with confusion. "Who are you?" he demanded. Amina didn't answer. Barasa pushed closer. "What business do you have with Halima?" "She is my wife." Amina's eyes hardened like steel. "She is nothing to you. Not anymore." Barasa flinched but quickly regained his arrogance. "How dare you speak to me that way? Do you know who I am?" "Yes," Amina said coldly. "I know exactly who you are." Her security stepped forward, blocking him from coming closer. Barasa pointed a shaking finger at her. "You outsiders think you can come here and take what you want. But Halima belongs to me. She owes me loyalty." Amina stepped forward, her presence radiating authority. "What she owes you," Amina said quietly, "is nothing." Barasa's face reddened. "Who are you to say? I am the woman who will make sure she suffers no more." Amina interrupted. Barasa fell silent, stunned by the force in her voice. Before he could speak again, Nyashia emerged. "Halima will leave with them," the healer said firmly, "and that is final." Barasa sputtered. "You have no right," Nyashia's eyes sharpened. "And you had no right to destroy a mother's heart." Barasa staggered back as if struck. Amina's jaw tightened. She wanted to shout her truth at him, to tell him she had survived, succeeded, triumphed, that she had become everything he never believed she could be, that his cruelty had forged her into something far more powerful than he ever imagined. But not yet. Not until her mother was safe. "Get him out of my sight," Amina said softly. Her security escorted Barasa away as he shouted curses, but his voice sounded small now, powerless. Amina turned back to the hut and watched as Halima, weak but stable, was lifted gently into the awaiting SUV. Amina climbed in beside her, holding her mother's hand as the door closed. "We're going home," Amina whispered. Halima's eyes fluttered open, dazed. "Home," Amina nodded. "Yes, a place where you will never be hurt again." As the convoy rolled forward, leaving the village behind, Amina looked out the window at the crumbling memories she had long feared. She had returned. She had found her mother. And soon, the truth would rise. The village, Barasa, the entire world, they would all know the power of the girl they had thrown away. But first, she would heal the woman who had loved her beyond limits. The road out of Kijani village stretched long and uneven beneath the convoy's wheels, but inside the back seat of the lead SUV, Amina barely noticed the passing scenery. She kept her focus fixed on Halima, who lay resting on the cushioned seat beside her. Halima's breathing remained shallow yet steady, her thin fingers curled loosely around Amina's hand, as if instinctively clinging to the warmth she had lost for so many years. Sophia, seated on the other side, monitored Halima's pulse with quiet diligence. "She's stabilizing," she said softly, "but she needs proper medical care, real care, Amina. Her strength is fading." Amina nodded. "We'll take her to Nyaribo General. I've already alerted them." Sophia rested her hand on Amina's shoulder. "You've done the right thing." But Amina didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. Relief mixed with fear as she watched Halima's frail form. She had found her mother, but was she already too late? Halima stirred, eyelids fluttering. Where am I? In a car, Mama Amina replied gently. We're taking you somewhere safe. Halima blinked dazedly. Safe? I haven't felt safe in years. Amina's throat tightened. You will now. Halima's gaze lingered on her face, studying her with soft confusion. Why do you help me so much, child? You're a stranger. Amina's heart twisted. Not a stranger, she whispered, but not loudly enough for Halima to hear. The vehicles continued across the open plains until hours later, the skyline of Nyarabo City emerged, tall buildings rising like shimmering pillars. Halima stared in muted awe. This place, it looks like another world. Amina smiled faintly. It became my world. They entered the city, passing busy markets, glowing billboards, and elegant districts. Halima watched everything with wide eyes, overwhelmed. When the convoy finally pulled up to the private wing of Nyarabo General Hospital, a team of doctors rushed forward, already briefed and prepared. Amina stepped aside reluctantly as they lifted Halima onto a stretcher. Halima's hand reached out, searching for something, someone. Amina caught it immediately. I'm here, she whispered. I won't leave. Halima calmed, allowing herself to be wheeled inside. For the next 3 days, Amina barely slept. She stayed at the hospital from dawn until midnight, leaving only when the doctors insisted she rest. Her security team, unused to seeing her so vulnerable, guarded her room with unwavering respect. Halima was diagnosed with chronic malnutrition, anemia, and cardiac strain conditions worsened by emotional trauma. She has held too much pain for too long, one doctor said gently. Her heart is tired. Amina looked down, fists clenched. She won't carry it alone anymore. Halima's recovery was slow. Some days she was alert, other days she seemed lost in memories and shadows. On the 4th afternoon, Amina found her awake, staring out the window at the bustling city below. You brought me here, Halima said quietly. Why? Amina sat down beside her. Because you deserve to live, to heal. Halima studied her face. You speak like someone who has known deep wounds. Amina's gaze dropped. I have. Silence stretched between them, gentle, almost comforting. Halima touched Amina's hand. When I look at you, I feel something familiar, something I cannot explain. Amina's heart pounded painfully. It's time, she thought. Tell her you're her daughter. But just as she opened her mouth, the door burst open. A nurse gasped. Miss Amina, there's someone outside demanding to see Halima. He says he's her husband. Amina's blood turned to ice. Barasa, her jaw clenched so hard her teeth hurt. He is not her husband, she said coldly. Not anymore. Halima's eyes widened with fear. Barasa, why would he come here? Because he can smell opportunity, Amina muttered. She stood motioning to Sophia. Keep her safe. No one enters. Then she stormed out. The private lobby was filled with security guards blocking a furious, disheveled Barasa. He shoved at them, red-faced and sweating. I demand to see my wife, he roared. You cannot keep her from me. Amina stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Barasa, she said, voice calm yet burning with authority. You have no right here. He swung toward her, squinting. You again? Who do you think you are? Some rich woman who thinks she owns everything? Amina's lips curved into a cold, controlled smile. In this building and in my mother's life, I have far more standing than you. Barasa blinked, startled by her intensity. Your mother. What nonsense, I said. Amina repeated slowly, my mother's life. Confusion flickered across his features only briefly before arrogance returned. Halima is my wife, he snapped. I can take her back any time I want. Amina stepped closer, her presence radiating danger. You abandoned her, you destroyed her, you left her to starve. His face twitched. She chose her misery. I had enough problems of my own. No, Amina cut in sharply. She suffered because of you, because you believed cruelty was a right. Barasa scoffed. You know nothing about us. Amina's eyes darkened. I know everything. She leaned in slightly. I know about the lies you fed the village, the jewelry you hid to frame a child, how you ripped a girl from her mother and left her to die. Barasa's expression faltered. You, who told you? Someone who survived, Amina said. Her voice dropped to a chilling whisper. Someone standing right in front of you. Barasa's eyes widened slowly. You can't be... But Amina stepped back before he could finish, motioning to her guards. Remove him from the premises. He does not come near her again. Barasa panicked as guards seized him. Wait, I I didn't mean. She's my wife. My responsibility, Amina's voice was ice. You lost that privilege the night you threw me out. Barasa froze, his lips parted. You, Amina didn't answer. Her silence was confirmation. He dropped to his knees trembling. I didn't know. I thought you were dead. You wanted me dead, Amina said. But I lived. And I will protect Halima from you for the rest of her days. Barasa cried out as security dragged him away. Amina, wait, please, I'm sorry, I'm begging you. But she turned her back and walked away. For the first time, Barasa felt fear not of Amina's power, but of the truth he had buried, finally rising to swallow him whole. When Amina returned to the hospital room, Halima looked up with fragile curiosity. Who was shouting? Amina sat down beside her, took her hand and exhaled slowly. Someone from our past, she said softly. But he won't trouble you again. Halima nodded relief, softening her eyes. You protect me as though you are mine. Amina squeezed her hand gently. I am, she whispered. I always have been. Halima blinked, confused. Child, what do you mean? Amina felt tears rising, but didn't fight them this time. I came to you as a stranger, she said. But I am not one. Halima stared at her, breath trembling. Then who are you? Amina lifted her mother's hand to her heart. I am the girl they took from you, she whispered. I am Amina. The world held its breath. Halima froze her eyes, widening her lips, trembling, her breath faltering. Then she let out a broken, desperate sob. Amina, my child, my baby. Is it really you? Amina pulled her mother gently into her arms. Yes, Mama, she whispered through tears. I came home. Halima wept into her daughter's chest, years of grief and hopelessness pouring out all at once. Amina held her tightly, finally whole. And in that moment, the past no longer chained them. A new story had begun. For a long time, the hospital room held only the sound of Halima weeping into her daughter's chest, deep, aching sobs that seemed to scrape against every wound she had carried over the years. Amina stroked her mother's back, gently murmuring soft reassurances while struggling to hold back her own tears. She had imagined many possible reunions, but nothing prepared her for the overwhelming mix of relief, grief, and love crashing over them both. My child, Halima whispered again and again, her fingers trembling as they traced Amina's face. You are alive, you are alive. Amina cupped her mother's hands in hers and kissed them gently. I survived, Mama. I never forgot you. Not for a single day. Halima pulled back just enough to look into her daughter's eyes. But how they said you died. They told me a traveler found a girl's body by the river. They made me believe it was you. Amina's jaw tightened. They lied. They wanted you to stop searching. Halima's breath hitched. All those years, all those prayers, all that hope I fought to keep alive. You kept me alive too, Amina whispered. Your voice, your love. Even when I thought I would die, I held on to you. Halima pressed her forehead against Amina's. My Amina, my brave girl. Tears flowed freely between them, washing away years of painful silence. After several minutes, Halima drew a shaky breath. Tell me everything. Where did you go? How did you survive? What happened to you? Amina hesitated. There was so much to tell, and she didn't want to overwhelm her mother. But Halima's eyes, filled with desperate curiosity and maternal fear, urged her to continue. It was Musa who found me, Amina began softly. A kind merchant driving through the storm that night. He took me in, gave me a home, sent me to school, raised me like his own daughter. Halima gasped softly. An angel. He must have been an angel. Amina smiled sadly. He died when I was 17, but he left me everything he owned. He believed in me more than anyone ever had. Halima reached for her daughter's hand. And you honored him? I can see it. Amina nodded. I built the company he started, expanded it, grew it, became strong enough to come back. Halima's lips parted in awe. My daughter, you became a woman people look up to. A shadow passed through Amina's eyes. But I came back for you, not for them. Halima squeezed her hand. You don't know how many nights I begged God to protect you, to let me see you again before I die. Amina swallowed hard. You won't die anytime soon. I'm going to take care of you now. Halima smiled weakly. To think that the little girl they cast out returned as a woman of power. Her eyes glistened with pride and sorrow intertwined. You are everything they swore you would never be. Amina brushed a tear from her mother's cheek, and soon they will know it. Halima looked suddenly anxious. You won't hurt them, will you? Even after what they did, Amina's expression hardened, though her voice remained calm. I won't hurt them with violence. But I won't let them escape the truth. Justice isn't cruelty, Mama. Halima looked torn. I don't want revenge to poison your heart. Amina leaned in. I promise you, everything I will do is to protect you. To protect others, not to destroy. Halima nodded slowly, trusting her daughter completely. Amina squeezed her hand. Rest now. You need your strength. We'll talk more later. Halima lay back against the pillows, exhaustion settling into her bones. But she held onto Amina's hand until sleep claimed her. Later that evening, Amina stepped out of the room, needing a moment to breathe. The hallway was quiet except for soft footsteps of nurses passing by. Sophia waited nearby, watching Amina's expression with concern. How is she? Sophia asked. She knows, Amina whispered. Everything. And she accepted me instantly. Sophia smiled warmly. Of course she did. A mother always knows her child, even after years apart. Amina leaned against the wall, wiping her eyes. I didn't realize how heavy it all still was. Saying it out loud, telling her everything, it felt like I was reliving it. Sophia placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. But now you're not alone in that burden anymore. Amina nodded, exhaling slowly. There's more to uncover. I need to know who orchestrated the lie about my supposed death. Who told her that story? And why we can find out, Sophia assured. Amina straightened, resolve, tightening her features. Yes, we need answers. The next morning, Amina made her first move. She asked her assistant to compile a full background report on Kijani village, its leaders, its power structures, current state. She wanted names, histories, alliances. She needed to know who had benefited from her disappearance. Then she turned her attention to Barasa. He had been escorted out of the hospital, but he hadn't gone far. He lingered just beyond the gates, trying repeatedly to get inside. When Amina finally agreed to see him, he fell to his knees the moment she appeared. Amina, forgive me, he pleaded. I was a fool, a monster. But I thought you were dead. They told me. Amina cut him off sharply. Who told you that? Barasa froze. His eyes darted nervously. I don't remember clearly. The village messenger or someone said, do not lie to me, Amina warned. Barasa wilted. It was my mother, Mama Zawadi. She said she heard it from a traveler. I didn't question it, Amina's rage flared. Because you wanted it to be true. Barasa's chin trembled. Yes, I was selfish, angry, blind. But I regret it. I regret all of it. Please, let me see Halima. Amina's gaze was ice. No, Barasa choked. She's still my wife. She was your possession, Amina snapped. Not your partner. You destroyed her spirit. You stole her child. You have no right to her now. Barasa bowed his head, defeated. Then he whispered, what will you do to me? Amina stepped closer, her voice low and terrifyingly calm. Nothing. Yet, your judgment will come later, and not from my fists, but from truth. Barasa trembled. Truth, yes, Amina said. The same truth you buried for 12 years. She turned to leave. Barasa called after her, voice trembling. Amina, please, tell her I am sorry. Amina paused and looked back. She does not need your sorry. She needs peace. And then she walked away, leaving him shaking on the ground. Days passed. Halima grew stronger, her appetite returning, her face regaining some color. She smiled more. She asked questions, gentle ones, about Amina's life, her work, the people she met. Amina answered everything patiently, cherishing each moment of the bond they had reclaimed. One afternoon, as they sat together watching the sunset from the hospital balcony, Halima rested her head against Amina's shoulder. My daughter, she murmured. You came back brighter than the sun. Amina kissed the crown of her mother's head. Because your love carried me. Halima closed her eyes. Now what will you do? Amina gazed at the horizon, her expression firm. I will take you home with me, she said. But before that, I will return to the village. Not as the frightened child they threw out, but as the woman I've become. Halima looked up fearfully. Be careful, Amina. Power frightens small minds. They may lash out. Amina nodded. Let them. The truth deserves to be heard. Halima squeezed her hand tightly. I will stand with you. Amina shook her head gently. Not yet. Rest, Mama. Heal. When the time comes, you will stand by my side. And together we will rewrite everything. The sky blazed orange and gold before them, a symbol of endings and new beginnings. Amina knew that the next chapter would not be easy. She had faced storms before, but the storm she was about to unleash would shake the entire village to its core, and she was ready. More ready than she had ever been. A week after the emotional reunion, Halima's condition had improved enough for the doctors to release her into Amina's care, but not enough for her to travel long distances or face any intense emotional strain. Amina arranged a private suite in her own residence, complete with a nurse on standby and a schedule of follow-up appointments with the best cardiologists in Yoruba. She spared no expense. Halima was finally receiving the kind of care she had deserved her entire life. But while Halima rested in the comfort and safety of Amina's mansion, Amina herself was preparing for something she had been building toward since the moment she stepped foot back in Kijani village, the truth reckoning. The village had lived with lies for over a decade. It had thrived on silence, shame, and the cruelty of those who twisted the narrative for their own benefit. And now that Halima was safe, Amina had no intention of allowing that poisonous history to remain hidden. It was time to return, this time openly, without disguise, without hesitation, without fear. The morning sun had barely risen when Amina stepped out of her mansion, dressed not in the elegant business attire she was known for, but in a flowing, traditional dress woven with dark green and gold threads. The pattern was the kind her mother had once sewn late at night, while Amina pretended to sleep. Around her neck hung the small pendant Musa had gifted her, her anchor, her reminder of the man who had turned her broken beginning into a powerful story. Her security team stood ready. 3 SUVs waited in the driveway, engines humming softly. Safiya approached, concern etched across her face. "Amina, are you prepared for this?" Amina inhaled deeply. "No, but I've waited long enough." Safiya nodded. "Then we follow your lead." Amina glanced back toward the mansion windows. She knew Halima was inside somewhere, likely watching from her room or imagining the road ahead. Amina whispered silently to her mother in her heart, "This time I walk into the past with strength, not with fear, and I walk for both of us." The convoy departed. The road to Kijani village felt different this time. No longer was Amina holding her breath with dread. She wasn't the terrified child stumbling through mud under a storm. She wasn't the orphaned teenager staring into uncertainty. She was a woman forged by pain and reborn in power. Every mile felt like reclaiming something that had been stolen from her. Just before entering the village, the convoy halted. Amina stepped out, instructing her guards to remain by the road. "I'll walk in," she said. "Alone." Her head of security hesitated. "Madam, the villagers may react unpredictably," Amina raised a hand. "I am not here to intimidate them. I'm here to show them the truth." The guards reluctantly agreed, spreading out but allowing her space. Amina took her first step onto the dusty path that led to the village square. And just like before, this time, without disguise, every head turned. Children paused in their play. Women carrying water pots slowed. Old men sitting under the shade of trees straightened their backs as they recognized her face. Whispers surged like wind through tall grass. "It's her. The rich woman. The one who took Halima. Look at her. She looks like impossible. She died years ago." Amina walked forward with a calm, measured stride. Her presence commanded the space around her. She didn't need to announce who she was. The truth radiated through every inch of her being. In the center of the village, she stopped and turned slowly, taking in the place that had once been her cage and her grave. A group of villagers approached timidly, among them an elder, a man with a white beard and cautious eyes. He raised a hand politely. "Madam, forgive us, but who are you? And why have you returned?" Amina held his gaze for a long, quiet moment. Then she said, clear and steady, "My name is Amina, daughter of Halima." Gasps rippled across the crowd. The elder stumbled backward. "Amina, but you died. We were told." "I know what you were told," Amina interrupted, her voice carrying across the square. "You were told a lie. A lie that tore a mother and child apart. A lie that nearly killed us both. And a lie that served only one purpose, protecting the guilty." Murmurs grew louder. A few women covered their mouths in shock. One old man swore quietly under his breath. Amina stepped forward. "Ask yourselves who benefited from my disappearance, who wanted me gone, who silenced Halima, who turned the village against a helpless child." Eyes shifted almost in unison toward the narrow path leading to Barassa's house. Amina let the moment hang. Then she raised her chin slightly. "It is time for truth." At that precise moment, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows of a nearby hut. Mama Zawadi, Barassa's mother, frail, yet still carrying the sharpness in her gaze that Amina remembered far too well. The older woman froze when she saw Amina. Her lips parted, her eyes widened. For the first time, Amina saw fear in the face of the woman who had once delighted in humiliating her. "You," Mama Zawadi whispered, "it can't be. You were dead. You were thrown out like refuse." Amina cut in. "Left to die in a storm because of a lie you helped create." Mama Zawadi shuddered visibly, stepping back. The villagers turned to her now, suspicion growing in their eyes. "You told us," one man said. "You said her mother should stop searching," added another. "You said a traveler found her dead," whispered a woman. "Was that true?" Mama Zawadi's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. The crowd pressed closer, their demands rising like thunder. Amina walked toward the old woman, but not with rage, not with vengeance. She stopped just inches away and said softly enough that only Mama Zawadi could hear, "You stole my mother's hope, but you failed to steal her love." Mama Zawadi trembled, her eyes filling with tears she had likely never shed for anyone. Then Amina stepped back and addressed the village once more. "I survived," she said. "I was taken in by a man who raised me with more love than this place ever showed. I built a life, an empire out of the pain you allowed to happen." She let that sink in. "But I did not come here for revenge. I came for my mother. She is safe now. She will never suffer again. And I came to ensure no other child is treated the way I was." A heavy silence fell. Then from the edge of the square, a voice broke through. "Amina?" Barasa stood there, disheveled, ashamed, trembling. He looked nothing like the domineering man who once dragged her into the rain and threw her out of his home. Now he looked small, very small. He walked forward slowly, hands shaking. "Amina, please, let me speak." The villagers stepped aside. Amina stood tall, unmoving. Barasa stopped in front of her and fell to his knees. The sound of his knees hitting the dirt echoed across the square. "I was wrong," he choked. "I was cruel, blind, arrogant. I failed you. I failed Halima. I would undo it all if I could." Amina's face remained unreadable. "I can never undo what you did," she said. Barasa nodded, tears streaming. "I know. You broke a child," she continued. "And you shattered a mother. You left her to die in sorrow." "I know," he whispered. "And that guilt kills me every day." The villagers murmured. Some looked horrified, others angry. Amina held his gaze. "Your punishment is not mine to deliver." Barasa swallowed. "Then, who's your own conscience?" Amina replied. "The weight of what you did, and the knowledge that the girl you cast out now stands above you, not to harm you, but to show you what true strength looks like." Barasa sobbed openly. Amina turned to the village. "The truth is out," she said. "My mother will never return here. But this village must never allow such cruelty again." She paused. "And as for you all, your shame is your own to carry, not mine." With that, she walked past Barasa, past the villagers, past the ghosts of her childhood. Her guards fell in step behind her. The village watched silently, realizing they had just witnessed something greater than vengeance, something deeper. A reclamation of dignity, a triumph over darkness. And as Amina stepped into the waiting SUV, she whispered a quiet promise to herself. "This ends today, and a new beginning starts now for me, for Mama, and for the future we will build." The drive back to Nyarabo was silent, heavy with the echoes of everything that had happened in Kijani village. Amina sat in the back seat, her gaze fixed on the dusty road that blurred beneath them. Her hands rested loosely in her lap, but inside her heart pulsed with a mixture of triumph, sorrow, and exhaustion. She had done what she needed to do, spoken the truth, faced those who had wronged her, but something in her still trembled, as though the confrontation had stirred old wounds she hadn't realized were still tender. As the city skyscrapers began to reappear on the horizon, her phone buzzed. Sophia leaned in. "It's the doctor. He says Halima is awake and asking for you." Amina's breath softened. "Then take us straight home." When the convoy pulled into the mansion's courtyard, Amina stepped out before the vehicle fully stopped. She walked briskly through the marble corridors, her heels echoing against the polished floor, until she reached Halima's private suite. Inside, Halima sat propped against a mountain of pillows, looking fragile yet alert. The nurse excused herself quietly as soon as Amina entered. Halima's eyes brightened at the sight of her daughter, though worry clouded them immediately. "You're back," she said softly. Amina nodded, drawing a chair close to the bedside. "I didn't mean to be long. You went to the village again." It wasn't a question. Amina lowered her gaze. "I had to." Halima reached out a trembling hand. "Come here." Amina took her mother's hand, kissing it lightly. Halima cupped Amina's cheek, searching her face with the kind of perception only a mother could possess. "You look troubled," Halima whispered. "Tell me, what happened?" Amina hesitated, not wishing to burden her mother with the ugliness of the confrontation. But Halima's touch was gentle and insistent. So Amina told her everything: how the villagers reacted, how Mama Zawadi trembled with fear, how Barasa had fallen to his knees pleading for forgiveness. Halima listened quietly, her expression unreadable, tightening only when she heard the trembling desperation in Barasa's voice. "He asked to see you," Amina finished. "But I refused." Halima sighed, closing her eyes. "Amina, I do not wish to ever return to that place. But him, I do not know how I feel about him anymore." "You don't owe him anything," Amina said firmly. Halima nodded weakly. "Maybe, but for now, I want peace." Amina leaned forward and rested her forehead gently against Halima's shoulder. "And you will have it." They remained that way for several minutes until Halima stroked her hair softly. "My daughter," she murmured, "you carry so much on your shoulders, more than I ever wanted for you." Amina shook her head. "Everything I am because of you and Musa." Halima's lips curved into a small, bittersweet smile. "You are strong, perhaps stronger than either of us ever imagined." Amina exhaled slowly. "Mama, there's something else, something I want to do, but I don't know how you'll feel about it." Halima's brows drew together. "What is it?" "I want to go back one more time," Amina said. "Not to speak to them, not to confront them, but to change things." Halima's eyes sharpened with interest. "Change what?" Amina's voice gained steadiness. "The way children are treated in that village, the way widows are shamed, the way the poor are pushed aside. I want to build something there, a school, a place where children can learn, grow, and be protected, so no child ever faces what I did." Halima's lips parted in surprise. Tears welled up in her eyes, not from sadness this time, but pride. "A school," she whispered, "a place of hope." Amina nodded. "Yes, Musa raised me with knowledge. You raised me with love. I want to give those things back, to children who have nothing, to mothers who are ignored, to girls who are silenced." Halima took Amina's hands in both of hers. "Then do it, not out of revenge, but out of grace." Amina smiled softly. "Exactly." 3 weeks later, after ensuring Halima had regained enough strength, Amina set her plan into motion. Meetings were scheduled with architects, educators, land authorities, and humanitarian organizations. Her company's board questioned her decision at first, but Amina made her vision clear. "This is not charity," she told them confidently. "This is legacy." Skeptics quieted, supporters multiplied. Within a month, Amina returned to Kijani village, this time with a team of surveyors and engineers. Villagers gathered once again, this time in anticipation rather than fear. Word had spread that Amina was planning to invest in the village. A school, a community center, a clinic. No one had expected generosity from the woman they once wronged. Barasa stood at the edge of the crowd, humbled, unable to lift his eyes. Mama Zawadi watched from afar, her guilt carved deeply into her expression. Children peeked from behind huts, their eyes bright with curiosity. Amina stepped forward, addressing the entire village with a calm, clear voice. "I have forgiven the past," she began. "But forgiveness is not the same as forgetting. We must learn, grow, and become better." She paused, looking at the small faces, peeking from behind the adults. "Every child deserves a future. Every mother deserves dignity. Every family deserves hope." She took a breath. "I will build a school here, a place where children learn not fear but wisdom. A place where no lie, no cruelty, no injustice can silence them." The villagers murmured in awe. Amina continued, "The school will be named after the two people who saved me, my mother Halima, and Musa, the man who raised me." Gasps rose from the crowd. Barasa dropped to his knees once again, tears streaming down his face. "Amina, I don't deserve your kindness." Amina turned to him, her expression steady but not unkind. "You deserve the consequences of your choices," she said softly. "But this is for the children, not for you." He bowed his head in silent acceptance. Amina then faced the crowd. "I will also build a clinic to serve the village for free, and a small home for my mother should she ever wish to return, though she is under no obligation to do so." The villagers exchanged glances of shame and gratitude. Many stepped forward to offer apologies, tears, and promises of change. Amina accepted their words with grace, neither arrogant nor vengeful. She was beyond all that now. She had risen. 3 months later, the first foundation stone was laid for the Halima and Musa Academy of Hope. Halima, though still recovering, sat in a comfortable chair at the groundbreaking ceremony. She wore a new dress Amina had given her, deep maroon with embroidered gold patterns. Amina stood beside her, holding her hand. Cameras flashed as journalists gathered, eager to cover the powerful woman's emotional return. Halima whispered, "You healed the wound by planting something beautiful in its place." Amina kissed her forehead. "That was your strength, Mama. I only followed it." Together they placed the first stone. The villagers clapped, children cheered, a new chapter began. Later that night, as the sky shimmered with stars, Amina sat on the balcony of the mansion beside her mother. Halima leaned her head on Amina's shoulder. "You reclaimed everything they tried to steal from you," Halima murmured. "Your dignity, your future, yourself." Amina wrapped an arm around her mother. "Because you never stopped loving me, even from afar." Halima smiled softly. And now Amina gazed toward the distant horizon where the village lay. "Now, we build a legacy stronger than the pain we came from." Halima touched her daughter's cheek gently. "You came back with power, Amina, but you stayed with kindness." Amina closed her eyes, letting the warmth of her mother's words envelop her. For the first time in many years, Amina felt completely at peace. The past no longer controlled her. The future was theirs to shape. And together they would rise, stronger than storms, stronger than lies, stronger than everything that once tried to break them. The construction of the Halima and Musa Academy of Hope progressed faster than anyone expected. Amina made sure of it. Her influence, funds, and reputation pulled some of the best engineers and planners in the region. Within weeks, the barren plot of land that once held nothing but weeds and dust transformed into a bustling construction site, humming with purpose. Trucks came and went. Workers hammered, drilled, cut, and laid bricks under the watchful guidance of Amina's team. But with progress came attention. Reporters appeared in Kijani village. Influential figures across the region sent messages requesting meetings with Amina. Leaders praised her generosity, while critics whispered about her motives. Amina ignored all of them. She wasn't here for applause, she was here for justice, healing, and legacy. Yet the more the village transformed, the more the past continued to stir beneath the surface, especially for those who had done the most harm. And no one carried more turmoil than Barasa and Mama Zawadi. One afternoon, as Amina inspected the construction site, she noticed a crowd gathered near the old well. Curious voices murmured, children whispered. Adults kept a cautious distance. Amina approached slowly, and the crowd parted at once, revealing Mama Zawadi kneeling beside the well, clutching a wooden cane. Her frail shoulders trembled visibly. Her once proud, sharp eyes were clouded with fear and grief. Amina watched her silently. The old woman sensed her presence and looked up. "Amina," Mama Zawadi's voice cracked like brittle pottery. "Please, you must hear me." The villagers gasped. No one had ever seen Mama Zawadi beg, not even when life humbled her. Not even when poverty took what pride had refused to relinquish. Amina nodded slightly, signaling for the crowd to give them space. Some villagers dispersed, though many lingered at a respectful distance. Mama Zawadi struggled to rise, but her knees threatened to give way. Amina hesitated briefly, then placed a hand under the old woman's arm and steadied her. The touch shocked everyone, even Mama Zawadi. "You would help me. After everything I did," the old woman whispered. "Helping you doesn't erase what happened," Amina said calmly. "But it doesn't increase it either. You needed support in that moment, so I gave it." Mama Zawadi's face crumpled. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, the words breaking through years of hardened cruelty. "I am sorry for lying, for framing you, for poisoning the village against you, for ruining Halima's life." Her tears fell onto the dirt. Amina stood still, allowing the confession to linger in the air. The crowd murmured, astonished. Some nodded with approval, others shook their heads at the overdue apology. "I was afraid," Mama Zawadi continued, her voice trembling. "Afraid of losing control. Afraid of losing my son. Afraid of losing the little power I had over that household. And you were innocent and young, and easier to blame." Amina's stomach twisted. She had imagined countless confrontations with Mama Zawadi, some filled with anger, others with finality. Never one filled with desperation and remorse. "What I did," the old woman whispered, "will follow me to the grave. I see your mother, how she suffered. I see you, how you rose above everything. And I know the monster in this story was me." Amina looked at the old woman for a long moment. "You took my childhood," Amina said softly. "You made my mother believe her daughter was dead. You shaped a wound that took years to heal. Mama Zawadi nodded miserably. I know, and I will never forgive myself. Amina studied her frail, remorseful age beyond her years. I don't need you to forgive yourself, she said quietly, but I need you to never repeat your cruelty. Not to any child, not to any mother, not to any human being. Mama Zawadi placed a shaky hand over her heart. I swear it. I swear it on the years I have left. Amina took a slow breath. Then let your years end in truth, not lies. The old woman burst into fresh tears. She reached toward Amina, but stopped short, unsure if she had the right. Amina didn't offer forgiveness, not yet. That was a journey they both needed time for. But she offered dignity and the chance for the old woman to walk away without humiliation. That alone spoke louder than any forgiveness she could give. As the days passed, the village's attitude toward Amina shifted dramatically. Children approached her eagerly, some admiring her elegant dresses, others asking innocent questions. Will the school have books? Will there be teachers from the city? Can we learn English? Can we learn computers? Amina smiled each time. Yes, yes to everything. Adults too began seeking her out, some in gratitude, others in guilt. One evening, a woman named Nadia, who used to be friends with Halima, approached Amina with tears pooled in her eyes. I wanted to say, I'm sorry, she whispered. I believed the lies they told. I didn't defend your mother. I didn't help her search for you. But I should have. Amina touched her shoulder gently. Thank you for saying that. Others followed, men who once mocked Halima for her grief, women who spread rumors about Amina's disappearance, elders who dismissed the injustice as family matters. Amina accepted their apologies with grace, but she remembered everything, and she never let their guilt overshadow the purpose of her return. The village had to heal, individually, collectively, and that healing needed guidance. So Amina did something unexpected. She invited the entire village to participate in building the school, not through money or influence, but through labor ideas and community support. She held meetings under the acacia tree, encouraging villagers to speak, to share their needs, to ask questions. At first, many were hesitant, but eventually they opened up. And through these discussions, Amina recognized something profound. The village's cruelty hadn't begun with her. It had roots, deep roots in generational trauma, poverty, broken leadership, and outdated customs that needed to be challenged. One elderly man admitted, "We punish children too quickly. We never question adults. We never listen to mothers." Amina nodded. That is where change begins, by listening. Another woman added, "We need a place where women can work and support themselves. Many struggle silently." Amina took notes, her mind already crafting new plans. She wasn't just building a school anymore. She was building an empire of compassion. Meanwhile, Halima grew stronger with each passing day in Yaribo. She received treatments, enjoyed nutritious meals, and took daily walks around the mansion garden. Doctors marveled at her progress. But the most beautiful change came in her spirit. She began to smile again. She began to laugh again. She began to dream again. Every evening, she and Amina sat together talking about things they had lost, things they had regained, and things they wanted for the future. One night, Halima asked quietly, "Do you ever hate them for what they did to you?" Amina took a long breath. "I did, for a long time. But hatred became a prison. Forgiveness, not forgetting, not excusing, but letting go, set me free." Halima leaned her head on her daughter's shoulder. "You are wiser than many twice your age." Amina smiled softly. "I had to be." Halima's eyes softened. "When the school opens, I want to be there." Amina tightened her hold on her mother. "You will be the guest of honor." One evening, as the sun dipped low over Kijani village, Amina visited the nearly completed construction site once more. The walls of the school were standing tall. The windows installed, the courtyard forming beautifully. Workers cleaned their tools, chatting as they prepared to leave. Amina walked through the hallways, imagining the laughter of children, the echo of lessons, the birth of hope. Then she heard footsteps behind her. It was Barasa. Thin, weak, but sober. His shoulders sagged not from age but from remorse. "I will not disturb you long," he said softly. "I only came to say one thing." Amina folded her arms. "Speak." Barasa lowered his gaze. "Your mother, would she ever forgive me?" Amina studied his trembling frame. "That is not my place to answer," she said. "Her heart belongs to her. You must speak to her yourself one day if she chooses to hear you." Barasa nodded slowly. "And you, will you ever forgive me?" Amina took a long moment before answering. "I do not forgive you," she said, "but I no longer hate you." That is enough for now. Barasa bowed deeply. Thank you. Amina watched him walk away, shrinking into the twilight, an old man haunted by mistakes he could never undo. And she felt peace, because she finally understood revenge had no place in the world she was building. But justice did, compassion did, legacy did, and her past, once shattered, was now the foundation of something far more powerful than she had ever imagined. The school neared completion, and with each rising wall, each painted classroom, and each planted tree in the courtyard, Amina felt something inside her gradually settle like a storm, finally losing its power after years of raging. But even as her vision came to life, another storm lingered on the horizon, a storm she had delayed for weeks. Barasa had asked whether Halima would ever forgive him. Amina had avoided answering fully because she knew the truth. She couldn't shield her mother from this confrontation forever. And Halima, as gentle as she was, deserved closure just as much as Amina did. Yet Amina was torn. Halima was healing, but was she ready to face the man who had broken her heart, home, and spirit? That question weighed heavily on Amina's mind. One afternoon, Amina sat with Halima in the garden of the mansion. Halima had grown stronger, her cheeks less hollow, her posture less frail. Birds hopped along the stone pathway. The scent of blooming hibiscus filled the air. Halima reached for her daughter's arm. You're troubled. Amina glanced at her. I have a decision to make, and I don't want to make it without you. Halima's brows furrowed. Tell me, Amina inhaled slowly. It's about Barasa. Halima's hands stilled. For a moment, her breath hitched the way it once did whenever someone from her past was mentioned. But then she closed her eyes and steadied herself. She was no longer the broken woman who sat weaving baskets in silence. She had regained part of her strength. What about him? Halima whispered. He wants to speak to you, Amina said gently. To apologize. Halima went very quiet. Amina continued. He has changed, Mama. Time has humbled him. Life has stripped him of pride. But that does not erase the pain he caused. I don't want you to face him unless you truly want to. Halima looked toward the flowers, their bright petals swaying in the breeze. I won't lie, she said softly. For years I imagined standing before him again, sometimes to scream at him, sometimes to cry, sometimes to ask why. She shook her head. But now I don't know. Amina placed a hand over hers. You don't have to forgive him, or speak to him, or ever see him again. Halima gave a faint smile. But running away from ghosts doesn't make them disappear. Amina swallowed. So, what do you want to do? Halima closed her eyes, letting a long silence pass. Finally, she opened them, resolve, shining gently within them. Bring him, she said. Amina held her mother's hand more tightly. Are you sure? Halima nodded. Yes. I want to face my past, but I want you with me. Amina leaned forward and pressed her forehead against her mother's. Always. 2 days later, Amina brought Halima to a private, quiet room in the mansion, warm, softly lit, peaceful. A nurse remained nearby, but out of earshot. Sophia waited at the door as a safeguard. Barasa arrived, escorted by security. He looked smaller than ever, as though half his body had disappeared since Amina last saw him. His clothes were clean, but his posture was slouched. Shame clung to him like a shadow. When he stepped into the room, he froze. Halima sat in an armchair near the window sunlight, brushing her face. She looked delicate, but not broken, like someone who had endured the storm and finally found refuge. Barasa's knees buckled. He dropped to the floor instantly. Halima! He choked. I never thought I'd see you again. Halima's eyes glistened, though she remained composed. Barasa. He wept openly. I wronged you. I wronged our home. I wronged her. His voice cracked. And I took everything from you. Halima looked down at her trembling hands. Yes, she said quietly. You did. Barasa flinched as though struck. Amina stayed silent at her mother's side. This was not her moment. This belonged to Halima. Barasa continued. The day they told me she died, I should have searched. I should have questioned it. But instead I let the lie comfort me. Halima's voice broke. Comfort you in what? In abandoning your wife? In letting me drown in grief? Barasa sobbed harder. I was a coward, a selfish, cruel coward. And I destroyed you both. Halima closed her eyes, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. But I have hated myself every day since Barasa cried. I wake at night hearing her screams. Your screams. I see your faces everywhere. I thought I could drink it away, work it away, But guilt follows me. I don't want forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted to say it at least once before death takes me. Halima looked at him for a long moment. The air felt heavy enough to crush the room. Finally she spoke. You gave me nothing, she whispered. Not love, not kindness, not peace. Only sorrow, only fear, only loss. Barasa nodded miserably, but Halima continued, her voice unexpectedly steady. I realized something these past weeks. If I hold on to hatred, I will never fully heal. Hate chains me to the worst years of my life. I don't want to die chained. Barasa lifted his head slightly, hope flickering weakly in his eyes. Halima wiped her tears. I won't forgive you today. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not ever. But I release you from my sorrow. Barasa's breath caught. Halima, you were my burden, Halima said softly. But today I lay that burden down. Barasa bowed his head to the floor, shoulders shaking with sobs. Amina felt tears sting her own eyes. This moment, this display of impossible grace was something only her mother could deliver. Halima turned to Amina. Help him stand. Amina hesitated, but Halima nodded again. Reluctantly, Amina offered Barasa a hand. His fingers trembled when they touched hers. She pulled him to his feet. Halima looked at him one last time. Her eyes held no anger now, no love, just truth. Go, she whispered, and live the rest of your days with honesty. Barasa nodded, unable to speak. He backed slowly toward the door, trembling before stepping out completely. Sophia closed the door behind him. Halima slumped back into her chair, shaking with silent tears. Amina knelt in front of her, holding her hands tightly. Are you okay? Amina whispered. Halima nodded weakly. It hurt, she said. But now, I can breathe. Amina placed her head against her mother's lap. You're stronger than anyone I know. Halima stroked her hair. And you are the child I prayed for. The woman I hoped you would become. They stayed like that for a long time, surrounded by sunlight and silence, both knowing a chapter of darkness had finally closed. After the confrontation, Halima healed more quickly, physically, emotionally, spiritually. The weight she had carried for years had shifted. She walked more confidently. She smiled with genuine warmth. Sometimes she even sang softly while watering the plants. Amina watched her with awe. This was her mother, not the broken woman she found beneath a shack, but the vibrant soul she had carried in her heart since childhood. But Amina also knew the next chapter was approaching, the chapter where she would complete the transformation of Kijani village forever. The school was nearly finished. The clinic was halfway built. And now Amina had a new plan. A women's cooperative center giving mothers work, education, and independence. She shared the idea with Halima one evening. Her mother's eyes shone. You're rebuilding the village from its roots, Halima whispered. You're giving people the tools they never had. Amina smiled. We're doing it together. And Halima whispered the words that Amina knew would stay with her forever. You came back with power, but you choose to use it with love. That is what makes you unstoppable. As the sun set behind them, Amina realized something profound. She was no longer healing from the past. She was building a future. Not just for herself and her mother, but for every forgotten child, every silenced woman, every broken home. What she was creating now was more than legacy, it was redemption, and the world would soon witness it. The day the Halima and Musa Academy of Hope opened its doors was the day Kijani village transformed forever, but that moment had not yet arrived. Before the celebrations and speeches, before the white ribbons were cut and the drums echoed across the hills, another layer of the story had to unfold, one that would test Amina's heart in ways she had not expected. Because the village's wounds were not only her own. Pain lived in many corners of Kijani, some hidden, some ignored, and some carried quietly by those who had no strength to speak. And Amina soon discovered that healing a community meant confronting more than her personal past. 2 weeks after Halima's confrontation with Barasa, Amina returned to the village once more, this time without her full security escort. She instructed her guards to wait at the village edge while she walked alone through the winding paths of Kijani. Children ran past her laughing and kicking a handmade ball. Women carried baskets of cassava, exchanging gossip near the market. Men repaired fishing nets near the riverbank. The village seemed lively, but Amina sensed something beneath the surface, an undercurrent of anxiety. People paused when they saw her, offering polite smiles but quickly looking away, almost as if they feared being judged. Finally, an elderly woman tugged gently at Amina's sleeve. "Please," she whispered, "come with me." Amina nodded and followed her through a narrow alley between mud huts. The woman led her to a small hut tucked behind a grove of banana trees. Inside, the air felt heavy, almost suffocating. A woman lay on a thin mat, her body curled protectively, her arms wrapped around herself. Her face was bruised, her lip was swollen. Her eyes, noticing Amina, filled with both shame and relief. "This is Lammy," the elderly woman whispered. "Her husband beats her often. She tried to leave many times, but the elders always send her back. They say it is tradition. They say a wife must endure." Amina felt something sharp twist inside her chest. Lammy whispered, "They told me to keep silent, the same way they told your mother to keep silent." Amina knelt beside her, taking Lammy's trembling hand gently. "You don't have to keep silent anymore." Lammy's voice cracked. "Will you help me? Or will you leave like the others?" Amina's jaw tightened, her eyes burning. "I didn't come back only for myself. I came back for all of you." The elderly woman nodded. "The village has many hidden wounds. You were one of them, but you survived. Maybe now, others can survive too." Amina helped Lammy sit up. "You will not return to that man. Not ever. I'll make sure of it. But the elders don't speak for the law," Amina interrupted firmly. "Nor for the future." Lammy broke into tears, shoulders shaking in release. Amina realized then that the school and clinic were only the foundation. The deeper change required courage the villagers had never been allowed to express. She said gently, "You will come with me to the city. My mother will welcome you. You will be safe there while we rebuild something better." Lammy clutched her hand tighter. "Thank you. I thought suffering was my destiny." Amina smiled softly. "Destiny isn't something you endure. It's something you shape." The elderly woman bowed her head. "Bless you, Amina. You carry the strength this village has long needed." Amina stood slowly, helping Lammy to her feet. "No one here will harm you again," and she meant every word. As Amina and Lammy walked toward the village entrance, whispers followed them like a trail. "That's Lammy. Look at her injuries. Amina is helping her. Is she going to interfere with marriage matters now? She is saving lives. She is causing trouble. She is changing everything." Amina heard every whisper. Her stride did not falter. At the village edge, her head of security stepped forward, confused. "Madam, is everything all right?" "No," Amina replied. "Not yet, but it will be." Lammy was gently escorted into one of the SUVs. Amina turned to her guards. "Take her to the mansion. Sophia knows what to do." The vehicle drove off, leaving dust swirling in the air. Amina gazed back at the village, her expression unreadable. She had begun this journey thinking she was returning to confront old ghosts. But now she understood she was confronting systems, the beliefs, traditions, and fears that had destroyed her family. Now she needed to shift from healing to transformation. The following day, Amina summoned the village council to a formal meeting. It took place beneath the old acacia tree, the same one where she had once been judged, where rumors had spread, where lies had buried her truth. As she approached, council members shifted uncomfortably. They had no authority over her now, but old habits made them uneasy under her gaze. Amina sat before them. She wasn't wearing her usual power suits. Instead, she wore a simple but elegant dress made of village-woven fabric, a symbol that she had not forgotten her roots. One elder cleared his throat nervously. "Hey, Amina, we welcome you again to Kijani village." Amina nodded politely. "Thank you, and thank you for coming. We have much to discuss." The elder swallowed hard. She began, "I've noticed many families suffer in silence, especially women and children." Murmurs rose. Some elders nodded reluctantly, others looked defensive. Amina continued, "Tradition should protect the vulnerable, not silence them. And from now on, Kijani village will follow laws that protect life and dignity." An elder protested, but this is how things have always." Amina raised a hand. "And that is why the village has suffered. That is why generations have endured pain without justice. No more. Silence." Then she said the words that shook the entire gathering. "I am forming a village council of women, youth educators, and healers. They will have equal authority in decisions that affect the community." The elders stiffened. "That is not the way of old tradition," one said. "Then it becomes the way of new tradition," Amina replied. Another elder cleared his throat. "Amina, forgive me, but what gives you the right to change our customs?" Amina met his gaze steadily. "The right came the day you cast out a child and nearly let her die." Several elders lowered their heads. "And the right came again when you ignored the pain of women like Lammy," she continued. "You lost your moral authority long ago. I am here to restore justice." The elders exchanged helpless glances. They knew they were no match for Amina, not because of her wealth, but because of her truth. Finally, the oldest elder sighed deeply. Amina, what you say is true. We failed you. We failed others. Perhaps it is time for us to listen. Amina softened. Not to me, to the people you serve. The old man nodded slowly. Then let the new council be formed. Let the people speak. Amina bowed her head in gratitude. This was not victory in a battle. This was the beginning of healing a culture. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Amina returned to the mansion. When she entered her mother's suite, Halima smiled warmly. You look tired, Halima said gently. Amina sat beside her. A good tired. The kind that comes from creating something right. Halima nodded. I remember that feeling. Before life became heavy, I used to feel it when I finished a long day at the market. A small victory, but a victory. Amina smiled. Then today we won a very big victory. Halima tilted her head. Tell me. Amina told her everything about Lami, the council meeting, the new decisions, the resistance, the acceptance. When she finished, Halima placed her hand on Amina's cheek. You are changing a village that once destroyed you, Halima whispered. But instead of breaking it, you are rebuilding it. That is strength. That is grace. Amina leaned into her mother's touch. You taught me that. Halima shook her head. No, I only planted the seed. You grew into something far greater. Amina's eyes softened. Soon the school will open, and when it does, I want you to stand beside me. Halima's eyes filled with tears of pride. Always, my daughter. Always. Amina took her mother's hands, squeezing them gently. The storm had passed. The wounds had closed. The fear had dissolved. Now came the part Halima and Amina never had before. A tomorrow filled with hope. A future shaped by love, not pain. A legacy built together. And Amina knew her journey was far from over, but she also knew she was no longer walking alone. The weeks that followed were some of the most transformative the village and Amina herself had ever experienced. The Halima and Musa Academy of Hope stood nearly complete, now its walls gleaming a fresh cream color beneath the wide blue sky. The courtyard had been planted with tall acacia trees, flowers from local gardens, and a circle of benches where children would one day sit, read, and share stories. The sound of hammers and drills had quieted. Now workers focused on painting, installing blackboards, arranging desks, and preparing the library. Amina walked the grounds often, her steps slow, thoughtful. Every time she entered a classroom, she pictured children seated at wooden desks, scribbling notes with excitement. Every corridor called to her like a promise, one she had made to the girl she used to be. One she had made to every child who had ever cried alone in the dark. Halima had grown strong enough to join her on some of these visits. She sat in a wheelchair for long distances, but insisted on standing whenever they reached the classroom. This one, Halima whispered softly one morning, placing her hand on the frame of the first-grade classroom. Let this be the room where the little ones learn kindness before the world can teach them cruelty. Amina smiled gently. It will be. Halima turned to her. And over there? Will that be the sewing room? Yes, Amina replied. Sewing, weaving crafts. I want the students to learn with their hands too, not just their minds. Halima nodded approvingly. Practical skills save lives. Amina couldn't help but smile. You taught me that. Halima squeezed her daughter's hand. I taught you survival. You are the one who learned how to thrive. 2 days before the school's opening ceremony, the entire village buzzed with anticipation. Women baked giant trays of mandazi and cassava bread. Children practiced songs under the tamarind tree. Men swept the roads and repaired fences to make the village look beautiful for the big day. But beneath the excitement ran another story, one that troubled Amina deeply. Barasa had fallen ill. Not suddenly, but gradually, his body weakening under the weight of guilt, regret, and years of neglect. Word spread through the village that he could no longer walk without assistance, that he ate very little, that he cried out Halima's name in his sleep. Amina heard all of this from villagers who approached her with cautious sympathy. Maybe you should see him, one elder said gently. He grows worse each day. Amina shook her head. My mother has forgiven enough. I won't burden her with more suffering. But this isn't for her, the elder insisted. This is for you. Amina paused. He continued. You carry the memory of a man who wronged you, but now he is only the shadow of himself. If you do not say goodbye to that shadow, he may haunt you longer than he deserves. Those words stayed with Amina. That night, she sat alone in her room staring at the city lights beyond the mansion's balcony. She remembered the rain-soaked night when she was ripped from her mother's arms. She remembered Barassa's cold eyes, the way he turned away as she screamed for help. She remembered the lies, the abandonment, the trauma that had shaped her entire life. But she also remembered the man who had fallen to his knees in the village square, crying with a brokenness she had never seen in him before. And she wondered, had she freed herself completely, or had she simply outrun her past? She closed her eyes and whispered, "Musa, what would you have done?" in her memory. Musa's voice echoed gently, "Your life will be bigger than pain." Amina inhaled deeply. She needed to face the last ghost. The next morning she went to the village alone. She did not inform her guards or the council. She simply walked the dirt path toward the small hut, where Barassa now lived. People watched silently as she passed. Some nodded respectfully. Others whispered prayers under their breath. They sensed she was walking towards something final. When she reached the hut, she paused at the doorway. Her heart pounded not with fear, but with an overwhelming mix of old anger and unexpected compassion. She knocked once. A thin voice answered weakly, "Come in." Amina stepped inside. The hut was dimly lit, smelling of dried herbs and smoke. Barassa lay on a thin mattress, his once powerful frame now shrunken, his cheeks hollow, his eyes sunken but lucid. When he saw Amina, his breath caught. He tried to sit up, but his body failed him. "Amina," he whispered. "You came." Amina stood still for a moment before stepping closer. "I came to hear what you need to say." "And to say what I need to say?" Barassa's eyes filled with tears. "I don't have much time left." Amina felt no joy in hearing that, only solemn acceptance. He continued, "I wronged you. I tore you from your mother. I listened to lies because they suited me. I was cruel, heartless." He swallowed hard. "And yet, you rose. Higher than I could ever have imagined." Amina's voice was steady. "Your cruelty didn't define my life. It began it." He closed his eyes. "Sometimes I wish it had been me thrown out, not you." Amina felt her heart tug painfully. "That wouldn't have changed who you were." He looked at her with broken regret. "And who you are is everything I failed to be." Amina kneeled beside the mattress. "I didn't come here for your remorse. I came here because I want peace, true peace. The kind that doesn't leave room for hatred." Barassa's lips trembled. "Do you forgive me?" Amina took a long breath. "Forgiveness isn't a gift you earn. It's something I choose for myself, and I choose it now. Not for you, but for me." Barassa cried silently, his shoulders shaking. Amina reached out and placed her hand over his. "When you die, let the last thing you carry be truth, not lies, not fear, not guilt. And know this, the woman I became is stronger than anything you tried to break." Barassa's breath quivered. "Thank you, Amina." She stood slowly. "Goodbye, Barassa." As she walked toward the door, his whisper followed her like a ghost released into the wind. "Tell Halima, thank you for her kindness, even when I didn't deserve it." Amina paused but didn't turn back. "I'll tell her." Then she stepped out into the sunlight, lighter, freer, and finally whole. 2 days later, Barassa passed away quietly. The village mourned him not as a cruel man, but as a flawed soul who had met his end with honesty. Even Mama Zawadi, fragile and remorseful, cried softly beside his burial mound. Amina and Halima watched from a distance. When the ceremony ended, Halima whispered, "May God give him rest." Amina nodded, "And may God give this village a new beginning." Halima squeezed her daughter's arm. "He already has." The night before the school's grand opening, Amina walked through the silent campus alone. Lanterns glowed softly along the pathways. The wind rustled the leaves of the courtyard trees. Everything felt peaceful, ready. In the center of the courtyard stood a marble plaque covered by a white cloth. Tomorrow it would be unveiled. Tomorrow the village would see the names carved into its stone. Amina ran her fingers lightly over the cloth, whispering, "We did it, Mama." "And Musa, I hope you can see this." She stood for a long moment beneath the moonlight, and then she smiled softly, deeply, completely. Tomorrow, the girl who was thrown out would become the woman who rebuilt a world. The morning of the academy's opening began with a sunrise so radiant it seemed as if the heavens themselves were blessing the day. The sky glowed with streaks of pink and gold, casting warm light over Kijani village. Birds chirped in lively chorus, children buzzed with excitement, and the scent of fresh mandazi drifted through the air. For the first time in decades, the village felt awake, truly awake. Amina stood before the large mirror in her mansion, adjusting the emerald green sash across her dress. It matched Halima's perfectly. Today they were not just mother and daughter, they were symbols of survival, of hope, of a future reborn. Sophia entered quietly and smiled at the sight. "You look like a queen," she said softly. Amina let out a slow breath. "Today is not about me," Sophia tilted her head. "Perhaps not, but your presence is the bridge that brought us here." Amina didn't deny it. Instead, she turned toward the door. "Is Mama ready? She's waiting outside," Sophia said with a warm smile. Amina walked through the hallway, her dress flowing behind her, and stepped into the courtyard. Halima stood there radiant in her matching attire, her posture straight, her eyes shining with emotion. The weakness that once weighed down her shoulders had been replaced with quiet strength. When she saw Amina, tears welled instantly. "My daughter, you look like everything I dreamed you would become." Amina embraced her. "And you look like everything I fought to return to." The convoy took them to the village. But unlike previous times, Amina did not walk in alone. Today she and Halima entered side by side, fingers intertwined. The moment they arrived, the entire village fell silent. Women pressed hands over their hearts. Men bowed their heads. Children stared with wide sparkling eyes. Even the wind seemed to pause. Halima stood tall beside her daughter, and for the first time in many years, she felt no shame, only pride. A pride that rippled through the villagers as they watched the living symbol of healing walk among them. The school gates opened, revealing the finished academy. Its white pillars gleamed, its courtyard bloomed with flowers planted by the villagers themselves, and colorful flags fluttered in the soft morning breeze. A large crowd had gathered. Teachers from the city village, elders, officials, reporters, and families all waiting. A young girl dressed in a vibrant yellow dress approached shyly, holding a basket of petals. "Miss Amina," she whispered, Can I walk with you?" Amina knelt smiling. "Yes, of course." The girl sprinkled petals before their steps as they moved toward the stage. It was a gesture normally reserved for royalty. Today the villagers offered it willingly, not from obligation but honor. Amina and Halima reached the center stage, where the marble plaque remained covered by its white cloth. A hush fell. The head elder stepped forward. Gone was the rigid arrogance that once defined him. His eyes were humble, grateful. "Amina," he began, "months ago you returned to us as a stranger with power, but today you stand before us as something much greater. You stand as our daughter, one we failed in the past, yet one who chose to uplift us instead of destroy us. We are humbled." Whispers of agreement rippled through the crowd. Amina stepped forward and took the microphone. Her voice carried softly but firmly across the gathering. "Kijani village, she began when I left you years ago. I left in darkness. I left in fear. I left believing that the world had no mercy for someone like me." She paused, her gaze sweeping the crowd. "But today I return not as the child you cast out, but as the woman your actions shaped, not with hate, not with revenge, but with purpose." Murmurs filled the air, soft but emotional. "This academy," Amina continued, "is not a monument to pain. It is a promise. A promise that no child in this village will ever be silenced again. A promise that no mother will suffer alone. A promise that knowledge, hope, and justice will live here long after we are gone." Amina reached for Halima's hand, holding it high. "This school is named for two people, one who gave me life and one who gave me a second life. My mother, Halima, and Musa, the man who rescued me from the storm." Halima pressed her free hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. Amina whispered into the microphone, "Mama, this is your victory too." The crowd erupted into applause, some loud, some tearful, all heartfelt. Then came the moment everyone awaited. Amina wrapped her arm around Halima's shoulders, guiding her toward the plaque. Together they pulled back the white cloth. The crowd gasped. Carved into the marble in elegant gold letters, Halima and Musa, Academy of Hope. Where broken stories become new beginnings. Halima broke down, tears streaming as she traced her name with trembling fingers. She whispered, "I never dreamed, never imagined." Amina hugged her tightly. "You deserve this, Mama, more than anyone." Several villagers approached women who had once feared speaking out, men who once ignored their wives, suffering elders who had turned their eyes from injustice. One woman, Lami, approached Halima first. Her face was still healing, but her spirit glowed with newfound dignity. "Halima," she whispered, "your strength saved me, and your daughter saved all of us." Halima took Lami's hands. "I am glad you found your voice." Gondor women followed, thanking Amina, congratulating Halima, expressing hope for a safer world for their daughters. Even elders apologized, some with tears streaming down their wrinkled cheeks. Amina noticed Mama Zawadi standing at the back, leaning on her cane, trembling with age and regret. When their eyes met, Amina nodded gently. The old woman bowed deeply in return, tears falling silently. Redemption had begun in more than one heart today. After speeches, dances, and blessings, the children were invited to explore their new school. They ran laughing across the courtyard, touching desks, opening books, poking their heads into the library with pure wonder. Amina watched them with a warmth that filled her entirely. She felt Halima step beside her. "Do you see what you've done?" Halima whispered. "You have given life to this village." Amina smiled softly. "We gave life to each other first." Halima leaned her head on her daughter's shoulder. "I am proud of you, my child, more than words can say." "And I am proud of you," Amina replied quietly. "You survived the storm so that I could return to rebuild the sky." Together they watched the children play beneath the shining sun. Together they felt the past finally loosen its grip. Together they embraced the beginning of a new story, one written not in sorrow but in strength, grace, and hope. The girl who was once thrown out had returned not only with power, but with purpose that would outlive them both. The first weeks after the academy opened were unlike anything Kijani village had ever experienced. Children arrived each morning with bright eyes and eager steps, wearing uniforms woven by the village's new women's cooperative. Their laughter echoed across the courtyard like bells. The teachers, carefully chosen for both skill and compassion, guided them gently through lessons in mathematics, reading, science, arts, and traditional crafts. Amina visited often, sometimes standing quietly at the back of a classroom just to witness the simple miracle of young minds growing. Each time she did, something inside her healed a little more. The girl she once was, the girl who had been thrown out in shame, was finally free. Halima, though still regaining her strength, insisted on joining her daughter whenever she could. She would sit in a shaded corner of the courtyard, watching the children with an expression that blended joy, disbelief, and gratitude. Sometimes she would share stories with the little ones during breaks, telling them folk tales she had once told Amina under the stars. One afternoon, as Amina walked toward the sewing classroom, she found a group of women gathered around Halima. They were laughing softly, showing her patterns they had created for school seat covers and bags. The sight made Amina pause. This community, this unity was the true transformation of Kijani. But deep inside, Amina sensed her journey wasn't finished. One last chapter remained unwritten. A month later, the Women's Cooperative Center officially opened. The building was modest but full of light. It had sewing machines, weaving looms, drying racks for hand-dyed cloth, and storage areas for finished goods that would soon be sold in city markets. Amina had hired specialists from Yarabo to train the women in business, product quality, and market negotiation. The cooperative was named Halima's Hands. On the first day, Halima stood before the women, some young, some old, all eager for change. Her voice trembled, but her message was strong. "I once believed my hands were only meant to serve," she said quietly, "but now I know they were meant to create, to shape, and to rise. And so are yours." The women applauded with tears glistening in their eyes. Amina watched her mother speak, her heart swelling with pride. Halima had rediscovered her voice, once stolen from her years ago. And seeing her mother stand before these women transformed Amina's pride into something deeper awe. Yet change never comes without challenge. Some men in the village grew uneasy. The elders adjusted slowly. A few families resisted sending their daughters to school. So Amina took action. She called a village meeting beneath the acacia tree. People gathered, curious and uneasy. Amina stepped forward. "This village will not return to old patterns," she said firmly. "Women working is not a threat, it is strength. Girls learning is not rebellion, it is growth." A man rose. "But if women work and learn, what becomes of us?" Amina met his gaze steadily. "You rise with them, or you stay behind alone." The crowd murmured. Some nodded, some frowned. But none dared defy the truth in her voice. Another man hesitated before speaking. "Our daughters, will they still respect us if they become smarter than us?" Amina softened. "Respect is not earned through fear or silence. It's earned through love, fairness, and guidance. Educated daughters do not abandon families. They strengthen them." Halima stepped forward beside her daughter and added, "Amina's knowledge did not pull her away from me. It brought her back." The words spoken by a woman they had once pitied pierced the hearts of many. One by one, resistance broke away. But the greatest transformation happened slowly, quietly, through small everyday moments. Like the morning Amina found a group of boys helping girls carry books to class, something that would have been laughed at before. Or the afternoon a teenage girl approached Amina shyly and said, "Miss Amina, when I grow up, I want to be like you." Or the day the women's cooperative sold out its first batch of hand-woven bags in Yarabo, earning more money in 1 week than some families used to make in a month. The celebration that erupted that evening filled the village with music, dancing, and tears of joy. Halima danced too slowly with careful steps, but with a smile so bright that Amina felt her heart melt. 2 months after the school opened, Amina received an unexpected letter. It came from a city council official praising her impact on Kijani village and inviting her to share her model of compassionate leadership in a regional forum. Amina read the letter twice, her mind racing. She had never imagined that rebuilding one village would catch the attention of the entire region. She brought the letter to her mother. Halima read it carefully, her eyes shining. "My daughter, do you know what this means?" Amina nodded slowly. "Our story is reaching beyond Kijani." Halima cupped her daughter's face. "Your story, you turned suffering into change. And now the world wants to learn from you." Amina hesitated. "Do you think I should go?" Halima smiled warmly. "The world needs more voices like yours. But go only if you do it with the same heart you brought here." Amina kissed her mother's forehead. "Then I will go." The forum was held in a large hall in Yarabo. Hundreds attended: leaders, journalists, educators, activists. Amina stood on the stage, calm and poised. She spoke openly about trauma, transformation, and community building. She shared her vision, her pain, and her triumph. When she finished, the hall erupted in applause. Not polite applause, genuine, thunderous respect. Reporters asked for interviews. Organizations asked for partnerships. Investors asked how they could support further expansion. Amina accepted none of the offers immediately. For her, everything circled back to intention. She needed to be sure their motives aligned with the values she had built in Kijani. But she left the forum with one certainty. Her story, her mother's story, was bigger than she ever imagined. Life continued to flourish. Children excelled, women prospered, families healed. The village slowly shed its former identity, becoming a place of growth rather than fear. One evening, Amina and Halima sat outside on the school steps watching the sunset. The sky burned orange and pink. Children's laughter still echoed faintly as they walked home. Mama, Amina whispered, "Do you ever think about the night I was taken away?" Halima's eyes softened, but she nodded. "I do. It will always be a part of me, but the pain no longer controls me." Amina rested her head on her mother's shoulder. "For me too," Halima smiled. "We survived, Amina, and more than survived, we rose." Amina closed her eyes. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "No," Halima said gently. "You did it because of me, because love, even when broken, still grows." They sat together until the sky turned dark, and stars appeared, quiet, gentle witnesses to everything they had overcome. And so the story of the girl thrown out in a storm ended not with vengeance, but with rebirth. Amina built not a kingdom of power, but a sanctuary of hope. Halima found not a life of regret, but a life renewed in dignity. Kijani village discovered not shame, but possibility. And together, mother and daughter forged a legacy strong enough to outlive the shadows of their past. The storm that once shattered them had become the wind that carried them forward. Life has a way of breaking us in the most unexpected moments through betrayal, cruelty, or deep loss. Yet it is in these same moments that the seeds of strength are planted quietly within us. Amina's journey reminds us that suffering does not define who we become. Our choices afterward do. From pain, we can choose bitterness, or we can choose growth. From injustice, we can choose revenge, or we can choose transformation. And from brokenness, we can choose to rebuild not only ourselves, but the world around us. True power is not found in punishing others, but in healing, rising, and lifting others with us. No matter what storms we have endured, hope can be rebuilt. One act of courage, one healing moment, and one renewed belief at a time. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe to join more powerful stories with deep meaning.